Okay, so let's get ourselves started out here. Ooh, camera's doing an interesting fading in sort of thing at the moment. That's different. Okay, so afternoon one and all. We are here with Tom from Lyteshot. It's something that you may have seen us talking about within the past 2-3 weeks around the site. It's a technology that we're very much interested in here. But obviously, first and foremost, I'll kind of give you the stage over to yourself, Tom, and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself a little. You know what you do around Lyteshot and kind of how you guys got started over there.
All right. My name is Tom Catola. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Lyteshot, and our goal at the company is to get people to play mobile games with each other, interacting sort of in the real world, and looking up from the screen. And I've been doing video games professionally for the last 20 years or so, where I started my career at Activision, and I've worked most recently at Disney Interactive doing mobile games for them.
Okay, so you've got a wealth of experience coming with you across from your previous time at different video game companies. So obviously that lends itself to a wider base of knowledge of what a consumer would look for as far as different bits of technology are concerned, and how to kind of bring that forward into the next generation of gaming in some sense. So this is probably the point where we should kind of tell you what Lyteshot is all about, really. I mean, so far all we've seen is a shiny logo on a screen, and that's not too well, not giving away too much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop up the image of basically the basic handheld device and the puck itself as well that would fit onto like your clothing and so forth. If you'd like to explain to us the way that those would interact with each other and exactly what that would mean as far as involving those in gameplay.
Sure. So the light shot system consists of two separate parts. There's the lighter, which is more or less an infrared transmitter, as well as an array of other sensors. So it's got accelerometers and some other stuff in it. And then there's the light puck, which is an infrared receiver. And both of those pair using Bluetooth LE or Bluetooth Smart to your mobile phone. So if you have, an iPhone or a current generation Android phone, then they get paired to that. And so you can sort of think of it as it's a Wiimote that you can use in the real world everywhere. It's as somebody at a convention recently put it, it's laser tag on crack. uh, Using the infrared transmitter and receiver, you can sort of run around and shoot each other, for example. And by leveraging the mobile phone and leveraging the internet that's available through it, we can do much more complex gameplay than a traditional, people just running around just shooting each other like what you get in a laser tag.
Yeah,
So if you've played like a first-person shooter and it's got, like a domination mode, now you can play that in the real world with your friends.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's really, as you were saying before, it's taking people out of their seats and doing some of the same things that they've really enjoyed in the gameplay of, even something like your Call of Duties, and being able to bring that into the real world and participate with their friends and basically, chase about in a field and take each other down, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's when you think back to when we were all kids. You'd run around and play army with sticks and pretend they're guns or whatever. And we're really trying to take sort of that kind of running around and imagining like a game that you're playing in the real world and making it something that's accessible to everybody and not just young kids, and leverage technology at the same time.
Absolutely. I suppose it is kind of like taking those sort of childhood games that you would play with your imagination and making them a little more tangible, and making them trackable using your mobile devices as well. So yeah, really bringing it and making it, I don't know, just something a lot more than it ever was, which is fantastic. Now, excuse me. So with the lighter, obviously you can see it there on the screen. It's something that almost resembles one of the Star Trek phasers, right? That's kind of the look that it has there. But I understand that you've got ways of transforming that into something a little more relevant to the particular game that you're playing. So you've got a few additions that you can have with that.
That's correct. So we've got a number of different accessories. So for the lighter, for example, fits inside something that is we have a gun peripheral that it fits inside. So if something more akin to a gun makes sense for the game that you're playing, then you can use that peripheral. And we have a number of different attachments depending on the game that you're playing. So there's a wand attachment and a dagger and these sorts of things. So our hope is really to let people sort of use their imagination and explore what's possible as well if they're a little bit more on the maker side. So there's been other platforms that have done similar things. But this is the first time that someone's actually, that we're doing it. It's completely open. So, we're making games for it, but other people can make games for it as well. And, we're open on the hardware side as well. So if you've got a 3D printer or, you want to tinker with the electronics, then you're free to do that. And we're happy to tell you how to do more of it.
Awesome. And I believe you've got a couple of other ideas in the pipeline as well. I seem to remember, 'cause we previously watched an interview with Reverb Games, or I certainly did myself with the wonderful Foom over there. I believe there was some mention of like a bow peripheral as well, potentially coming into play a little bit further down the line. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's something that, right now is a little bit more conceptual. We're trying to figure out how to make it something where people aren't going to, hurt themselves and it'll end up to the rigors of, running around because that's what everybody's going to do with it. But yeah, we have a number of different peripherals that we're working on.
Awesome. And the point that we should really touch upon a little more widely is the fact that it's entirely planned to be open source. So that's on both sides, as you said. With your 3D printer, you can pop together your own peripherals and attach them onto your lighter, or you can actually develop for it as well. And how would you be looking to, for those people that have developed their own game modes or what have you using the hardware, how would you be looking to support them into pushing that out into the Lyteshot community?
Well, so we'll have games that people created hosted on our website, or at least links to it. In the case of an iOS or an Android title, it end up going through the Google Play Store or through the Apple iOS Store. But we're hoping to have a list of curated games as well. So ones that have gone through a little bit more of a rigorous process. But anybody can distribute the games, and then we're hoping to help people find ways that they can earn a living with that too. So people are free to monetize their games, and our business model is a little bit more like Minecraft. So if you want us to host your game server, then there would be a fee associated with it. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, you're welcome to do what you want with your hardware.
Awesome. So yeah, it's really kind of just giving it out to that community, which is something I'm sure we can fully get behind. Open source is becoming a bit more of a rarity. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to find the companies willing to. I wouldn't say necessarily give up like the revenue share or something like that, but in some ways making it open for others to take opportunity of their discoveries. So what drove you guys to making it more of an open source option rather than something that's licensed, for example?
Well, I've been working in video games, primarily consoles, for most of my career. So for the last, 21 years, as I like to say, most of my life has been spent under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about what I worked on. And I think it's really just sort of pushing back and rebelling against that. And, it made sense from a business perspective for us as well. I don't think that people should be held back and be able to enjoy ourselves because we're still working on games, and if they have their own ideas for games that they want to make or rules that they want to play with, then they should be free to go ahead and do that. And we really just felt that although we think we have most of the right answers, we don't think we have all of them. And so, we're just really trying to see, when you have a new gaming platform like this, we're really just hoping to get people onto it and start interacting with each other in the real world again, instead of everybody, staring at a tiny screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And we've covered over some of the more open source side of things and what other people can develop. But what we really should showcase here is what you guys have already done, or you've already got very firmly in the pipeline for the the game side of things, you've got a few game modes lined up already. So you've got one that's already kind of ready to go, and then is it a couple more that you've got waiting in the wings to be finalised? Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So the game that we have out right now is a game called Assassin, which is based on a classic game that people have been playing on college campuses for the last 30 or 40 years. There was even a movie in the early 80s called Gotcha, which wasn't particularly good, but is actually an Assassin. And the concept of Assassin is that you would play with several of your friends, and each of you is given in the real world version like a Nerf gun, and you're assigned another player in the group who you're supposed to shoot with a Nerf gun. The trick, of course, being that there can't be any witnesses when it happens. And there is a limited amount of time in which you have to hunt down that player. And, every player is being hunted by somebody, but they don't know who their assassin is. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of sneaking around. And, traditionally you'd have to have somebody who's playing as the referee. So he's keeping track of how much time each player has left to eliminate their target. And when they do eliminate their target, then their next target is whoever they just eliminated, whoever they were hunting, that's their new target. Mm-hmm. So the game continues until there's only one player left. And this has been played for quite a while, and we took a look at that and thought, that this would be something that seemed like a great fit for a first game for the system. So that's what we ended up doing. And so in our version, no more referee is required. Everybody kind of takes a selfie, and so you're assigned your mission, and there's a timer counting down that tells you how much time you have left to find your target. And if you complete your mission, then you're automatically assigned a new target. And one of the problems that they were having with this is that college campuses had to put rules in place that you can't play like in classrooms, and they had to sort of turn off various areas and say gameplay is not allowed in these areas. Mm-hmm. And all of that using our system can be automatic. So you can geo-fence your game. You can say it's valid to play during these hours only, and this is the area in which we want to be able to play. And if you go outside of that area, then you can't actually shoot your target. So all the traditional rule enforcement that had to be done by somebody who's playing as a referee and then therefore can't enjoy the game is now done automatically on the phone itself.
Awesome. So, and I assume you would have the option of, setting that to whichever sort of scale that you wanted. If you wanted to play it in the park, in the college campus, in wherever it is that you want to do it. I don't know. You've got some sprawling mansion that you decide to set a game up in. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how well off you folks out there are, but you've got the ability to just full on, use the. I assume that's through the mobile software, correct? That you can
that's
just
through the mobile software.
That's
out. Correct. Yes.
So
and we've got that. That's the first game that we've got, and it's running on both Android and on iOS, and it's actually already in the various app stores. Until we ship our hardware, it's not really playable for most people, but it is already in the stores, and then we're working on a couple different games, in addition to that. So we've got a game called Besieged, which is a sort of a fantasy game that is more or less like a typical domination mode from a first-person shooter, but you play that in the real world. So you can place the various, portals and capture points using the map, and you say this is where we're going to play, and then you can pick your character class. So you can play as either a wizard, as a warrior, or as a ranger, and they each have different kinds of stats. So one character, the warrior, for example, he can't attack from a distance, mm-hmm. but he's got very powerful attacks and lots of health, like what you would expect. Mm-hmm. While the ranger can do ranged attacks, so he can fire from a much longer distance, but doesn't have the same health stats as the warrior character does.
Gotcha.
And so, there's different character roles that you can pick that have different strengths and weaknesses, and you're trying to run around and maintain as many points for your team as possible mm-hmm. to earn enough to win.
So it's kind of a sort of conquest style, like if you're going for a typical thing, capturing your points, but also taking enemy players down at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So if you eliminate an enemy player, then they end up having to go back to the start and respawn wherever their base is, so to speak.
Hmm.
And so that's the next game that we're working on. And then the third game that we're working on is actually designed by the co-creators of Humans versus Zombies, and we're really excited about that.
For sure.
It's a little bit more unusual. So if you have a normal laser tag, it's always you're wearing a sensor and you have the transmitter. And so we were really looking for something that was not using our hardware in the traditional sense.
Right.
So they created a tower defense game that you play cooperatively with your friends in the real world against an AI. So you can imagine you and your friends, and somebody's playing in the commander role, and so he's giving orders and disseminating resources to the other players, and they're running around placing them, trying to defend against a viral invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to survive as long as you can so that you can earn a high score for the area that you're in. And we're really excited to start working on that one as well.
Awesome. So would that be something where you would again set your own areas, or would there be also, or is that an option? And then also with that you would have sort of your, I don't know, a typical area, like, I don't know, a shopping centre or something, like where that's one of the stages that is given and you can compete for your high scores in that area. What route are we looking at there? Because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so it's conceptually you can play it anywhere. It's primarily meant for out of doors, but you would play, say, out in the street by your house, and depending on the score that you set, you can have the high score for that area. If you go to a mall, somebody else might have a high score, so you'd have to bring your friends and try and beat their high score in that area so that you can, control more territory, I guess, so to speak. That sort of metagame isn't required. You don't have to play that part. If you just want to play, individual games, then you're welcome to do that. But if you're a little bit more competitive and you want to actually show off to other people how good you are or how good your team is, then you might want to dominate some different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think probably the best thing that we can do here is to kind of demonstrate some of the bits that we were talking about there. I've actually got the trailer that you guys have put together demonstrating the different some of the different game modes and people actually using it in the real world. So I'm just going to run that through for the guys on stream so they kind of get an idea of exactly how this would work. Let me roll that back to the start.
Being in a theater of war, stalking your enemy. Imagine casting a spell in your favorite fantasy RPG. Imagine your city transformed into a spy thriller where you are the hero. Now imagine there's a platform for game developers that could make this all a reality. The idea for Lyteshot came out of this desire to get out and connect with my kids who were always stuck to our phones or our tablets. And I wanted to come up with a way to integrate the digital gaming experience to get them to head outside to once again engage their imagination.
There's a different kind of adrenaline rush when you're being chased down by a real person as opposed to watching somebody on screen do it. The Lyteshot system has two different components. The lighter transmits a signal that identifies your action and who you are as a player to the light puck, which then receives that information and will light up when hit. All of this is working with your mobile device or heads-up display, so there's a cloud-based mobile gaming element going on in the background.
The lighter and light puck contain an array of hardware sensors, including infrared transmitters and receivers, Bluetooth low energy, accelerometers, navigation controls, along with vibration motors and LEDs to show in-game data.
The Lyteshot system is a way that you can play mobile games in the real world without staring at the screen. The interaction is with real other people on the Lyteshot platform.
You will be able to play all kinds of games on the Lyteshot platform. We have started development on a territory capture game with spellcasting and warrior gameplay, along with a team-based game called Invasion, which will be developed by the creators of Humans vs. Zombies. And we are proud of our very first game release entitled Assassin.
In the traditional game, when you killed somebody, then you had to go notify the referee, and then you would get assigned a new target and the status would update. In our version, all of this is automatic.
Beyond the light gun peripheral used in Assassin, we have also created other peripherals that attach to the lighter, such as the light wand, light sword, and light dagger. Players can use real-time tracking of game logistics, leaderboard, hit detection, geo-tracking, and quest completion, which can all appear on a heads-up display using augmented reality. With Lyteshot, you're no longer tethered to the gaming console. making every game not just one you play, but one that you physically experience. Lyteshot is breaking ground, and we want you to be a part of it. We have already created a number of working prototypes, a series of peripherals, along with our first game, Assassin, with another game on the way. Your pledge will enable us to start production on the Lyteshot hardware and peripherals. We need funding to make Lyteshot a reality so we can get it out to game developers like Chris and Joe, who are developing our next game called Invasion, and other developers to get started on their own creations. And finally, your pledge will allow us to continue bringing to life our vision for a more personal, connected, and imaginative way to play.
Okay, so that was the trailer that was originally popped up on the the Kickstarter that you guys ran a short while back, which came to an end before the end of the actual funding period. So, what drove you guys to move away from the Kickstarter model there, or was it a step back to kind of relook at things? What drove you there?
You know, Kickstarter is great because it gives you an opportunity to, present a new idea to the people out there and sort of get feedback from them and see if it sticks without having to, spend millions of dollars and shipping everything to stores.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that, so we launched our Kickstarter and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we went into the Consumer Electronics Show simultaneous with the launch, and so we got a lot of great press from that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that became clear as we were running it is that the price was probably higher than we would have liked, and it ended up being too high. And so we took a look at it, and although we made $40,000 something in a rather short amount of time, it was not the response that we were expecting. We were hoping for a little bit of a stronger response, and as I said, the feedback primarily was based around the price.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took a look at it, and we didn't want to deliver sort of a subpar experience to people, and so we decided that we would take it down and take a look and see if we could bring down the price of the hardware itself. And then we're planning on relaunching the Kickstarter sometime in the very near future. So, we looked at it as it was our chance to test the market, and we got many things right, and we got a few things wrong, and we would rather make sure that we get as much right as possible than deliver a subpar experience to people, and so that was why we decided to pull it down and try and redesign some stuff to bring down the cost so that people really get a better value for their money.
No, I can appreciate that. I mean, for one, I've spoken to quite a few different people that have run Kickstarter campaigns as well, and it does seem to be, the point where you really realise, what have you done perfectly well, what bits have you still got to perhaps, polish a couple of edges off of, and it's very much the most realistic dip that you can have into a consumer market without trying to get it into stores and to get it widely available through more traditional methods. So, I can see where you guys might have come across it. So, as far as working on the price point, which, as you say, seemed to be the sticking point for a few people, what kind of methodology are you looking at trying to lower that? Is it materials? Is it the amount of sensors? What's that kind of thought process?
Well, so the kits that we had available in the Kickstarter, so the ones that we have right now are they're completely hackable, and it's basically the same ones that we use to actually develop the product. Right. And so what we're looking to do moving forward is we're probably going to end up doing two different versions of the hardware. So one is for consumers that'll be a lower price, and it'll be a little less flexible in being able to hack it up and modify it. And by doing that, then we're able to save some money on components. And then we'll have, more or less what you saw in the first Kickstarter campaign will be our developer kit. So it's going to be at a similar price point as we had before. And it'll be the one that'll be available to be able to be modified. It's in all likelihood going to be slightly larger, so we're going to have it'll so the consumer version will become smaller as well. Make it a little bit more dense, and that way we'll have two separate price points, and that's really what we're looking to do.
Wonderful. I mean, yeah, that seems to follow a good line of logic there as well. I mean, when I first looked at the Kickstarter myself, my immediate thought was, that's fantastic. I want one. I need one in my life. But then, it was probably the price tag that was the only detractor for it. So, the fact that you guys are whittling down on that is admirable, frankly, because I have no doubts if you'd carried on in the way that you were, odds are you probably would have hit that goal and pushed through it. But it's I suppose it's like the professional pride almost that's given you that sort of room to develop a little further and to hone the edge of that product that you want to put out there.
Yeah, and as I said, since the price did become a barrier for people, one of the issues is that the more people that have the hardware, the more fun it is. If it's just you with yourself in a room, that's not very interesting. But, we were really afraid because we weren't hitting the kind of numbers that we were hoping. That people might not have a great experience if they end up being the only ones in their area who have the hardware, and so we're also looking at having another game out by the time that we reboot the campaign, and there's some functionality that we're hoping to add in to the current Assassin that'll allow people to play without having the hardware.
Okay.
And so, we're really just trying to get everything a little bit further along. And so, all in all, I think that it's going to be a good thing. We're going to come out with a stronger product at a lower price, and, there'll be more games. So
wonderful. And I suppose, we've touched upon the different sensors that are included in that. I mean, it kind of blew me away. I mean, you've got correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got the Bluetooth connectivity to be able to connect over to your phone and other devices and so forth. You've got your infrared for the actual locking onto people and taking them out. Accelerometer, there's a rumble pack in there, barometer, what? There's just, perhaps not the barometer, but there's so many different sensors popped in there. I mean, which ones did I miss? I'm sure there's some that I missed off of there, right?
So the lighter has both a transmitter and a receiver in it, which is, our plan with that is if you've ever watched, for example, certain laser tag tournaments, it seems like the entire strategy just involves trying to cover up your sensor as much as possible. And so to try and prevent that, our lighter actually has a receiver in it as well. So it's got an infrared transmitter and a receiver. A vibration motor. It has fully controllable lights, so it's got RGB LEDs in it, so that we can signal different status. It's got a couple different input buttons on it, so if you're playing a game where you can say reload, or you want to bring up a map or whatever it is, then there's a couple buttons on the lighter itself, and Bluetooth LE, and I think that's, and the accelerometers. So I think that's it.
Yeah. It's just so many.
We're planning on having expansion ports on it as well. So, as we move forward, if people have different sensors that they want to add to it, then hopefully that's something that we're going to have an interface for, so they'll be able to plug in, if they have something in particular for a game, a light wand, or, who knows, then that's something that'll be possible as well.
So almost like the nunchuck on the Wiimote, right? It's just like the extra accessory, plug it straight in, and bam, you're away, you're ready to do whatever you're going to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose the advantage of that as well, you've got your ability to 3D print your peripherals to go around that. That can plug in and go straight into the peripheral and still be a one-piece unit. So that's a fantastic way to have it all set up. Now, another thing, one of the guys has just popped into the chat here. Is asking about how tightly accurate you would need to be with the device, because obviously the puck itself is a reasonably small device for you to be hitting. So what kind of accuracy level would you need to have? I mean, obviously you said as well with the Rangers being able to attack from long distance in one of your game modes, the accuracy is going to be a big deal there, right?
Right. So it has a laser in it, which is used to help you aim, but it's actually an infrared beam that comes out in an arc. So at about 10 feet, it's just about shoulder width. So if I'm wearing it on my chest, if you more or less aim anywhere between one shoulder to the other, then it'll hit the target. I think it's I'm trying to. I don't remember the arc in degrees, but it does have a lens in it that we've adjusted to try and get the playability to where we want it.
Of course, that makes sense. And what it would be the approximate range on that as well?
We're hoping on the actual release units to have it up in the 1 to 200 meter range, and right now we're limited with the prototypes that we have. We're limited in the materials that we can use, so we're measuring it at about about 50 meters right now. So we're still working on optimizing that range, and it's a function of both the lens that we're using, which will narrow the beam and increase the range, but make it harder to hit people at close range, as well as with battery life. But both of those are something that we're aiming for. And there's a number of the different laser tag style products out there, and 1 to 200 meters for the range outdoors in daylight is pretty much the advertised number that everybody's getting.
Yeah.
And we're confident in our ability to hit the same numbers.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you mentioned battery life there as well. I mean, one of the concerns that I initially had was I think everyone's kind of aware of like the mortal doom of your mobile phone. As soon as you switch on Bluetooth or some kind of like data connection, or you dare to check the time on the screen, that's it. Your battery's like all the way depleted, right? So, what is the battery life like? Firstly, for the lighter itself. And then secondly, how would that affect the consumption on your phone when linked up with it?
So right now we're getting about 6 to 8 hours of active use. So I usually charge them in the morning, and then I'm able to work all day without having to plug them into the charger. And this is before we've done any sort of real power optimization. So it's going to be something north of that. Our plan is that you should be able to play it all day. If you go out with some friends, you should be able to run around and play all day without having to worry about charging it. Okay. And it uses a standard mini USB, so it's a rechargeable battery. You just plug it into a mini USB, and it charges rather quickly. It's not a huge heavy battery, so even on a fairly weak charger, in an hour you're probably at a full charge. Now, from the phone, the convenient thing is that as one of our goals is to try and get you to look up from the phone screen. The biggest driver of your biggest user of your battery life on your mobile phone is, in general, going to be your screen. That retina display that you've got with the backlight, and that's the one that's sucking down all your battery power. And because all of our games are designed so you don't have to be staring at the screen, the idea is you can plug in just headphones, and as you're playing Assassin, there's various mission timers. It'll count that down to you using audio, and give you audio alerts about what's going on. So you're not actually running around with the phone screen on and in your hand. So we've found that it hasn't affected the battery life a whole lot. It's been fairly, it works more or less like you would if you were, had a hands-free kit connected to your phone, but you're not actually talking on the phone. That's about how much battery life we're using.
True. So yeah, I mean, as you say, it really is a screen that's the massive consumer. I mean, if you've ever looked on that statistics page on your phone about what's consuming, and you're going, oh god, the bloody Facebook again, like, is eating up all my battery, and you look and it's like, no, 67% of your battery or something wild like that is being used by your screen. So that's good to know, though. And obviously your usage of the Bluetooth LE, the low energy variant of it as well, is again going to be a saver on that side as well, right?
Yeah, and it makes the pairing process is much easier. No more having to remember PIN codes or any of that stuff. And then the nice thing about it is that you can use the receiver. Works similar to an iBeacon as well. So, for example, if you're playing a game with different capture points and you're going to play that outdoors, you can use the GPS. But if you want to play it indoors, because it's very, very cold outside, like it is for me here in Chicago.
Yeah, same here, don't worry.
Yeah, then you can use the receivers. They're relatively low cost, and so you can use the receivers as your capture points. So you can place a few of those around, and we can detect proximity as you get near them without having to pair them. And so we can use that to allow you to capture the various points. And so yeah, we're very excited about that. And it's another bit of functionality from the Bluetooth LE, the Bluetooth Low Energy that we utilize for our gaming.
Yeah, fantastic. And it does seem that you've really, kind of taken the spec sheet of every sensor that you've come across to put into your device and gone, right, well, this will work in any number of these ways, and we're going to utilize all of them, which is a great way to look at it. And the other thing that I wanted to touch upon, which we haven't really mentioned so far, is and it was shown in the trailer as well, is the actual use of the HUD that you can have with your various different smart devices, like I believe it's the Epson one that you're working most closely with. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we actually ended up, we started work using Google Glass because that's the one that, everybody's familiar with. And, it worked out okay, but it only shows you an image in one eye, and it's very, it's difficult to sort of look through and use it while you're doing anything else. It's kind of in your peripheral vision. And so, we didn't think that was necessarily the experience that we were hoping for, at least when it came to augmented reality.
Gotcha.
And we saw the Epson glasses, and it's got, a display that's in your center of your vision, and it's actually in both eyes, so you can actually put perspective on it, which is a very, very cool effect. And so in our case, we saw the glasses and we thought it was very, very cool. So we got Assassin up and running on the glasses rather quickly. And we saw, Epson saw what we were doing, and they were excited enough about what we were doing that they offered to let us exhibit in their booth at the Consumer Electronics Show. So earlier in January, we were out in Las Vegas in the Epson booth demoing our game on the glasses. And so what you see when you're wearing the augmented reality glasses for Assassin is there's a small compass rose at the bottom that'll give you like your direction and range to your opponent who you're trying to hunt down. And then you can see your mission timer in the top right-hand corner as it's counting down. And then as you're assigned, if you're assigned a new mission after you've eliminated your target, you can tilt your head back and look up, and there's a dossier that slides down, and it'll show you the picture of who your next target is and, some vital stats about them. And, then you're off to the races, running around. Now you don't need to ever pull out your phone. You can just wear the glasses. And I'm actually a pilot by training, so I modeled it after a heads-up display from what you'd have in a fighter jet.
Gotcha.
And that's part of what excited Epson. So there was, various people who've got their games running on the Epson glasses. And the problem with most of them is that the game is screen-based, which means that, they've got a game that's running that's now sort of semi-transparent, puzzle game that's running in the center of your field of view, which looks cool but doesn't really take advantage of the augmented reality part. And since our whole concept is playing games in the real world, our whole product is sort of built around exactly what augmented reality is meant for, which is that you can see through it, and it helps you interact with other people and with the real world.
Exactly. I mean, the point is going to be, not to just have it as an alternate screen, but it's to be an overlay almost onto the real world. So, it's utilising AR in the right way, which is, again, the direction that we really want to be moving in.
I do want to, clarify that augmented reality glasses, although they are neat, are by no means required for our product.
No, of course.
It was more a neat accessory that we got very excited about, and so it gave us a chance to play with some very, very cool technology, and to try and utilize it for gaming. But it is a relatively large investment if you're going to go in to get augmented reality glasses, and so those are not required. In general, we're hardware agnostic, so we work on iOS and we work on Android, and any Bluetooth LE enabled phone we can run on. And other people have glasses that are going to be hitting the retail market in the near future, and we hope to work with all of those. I mean, you hear about the the rise of the Internet of Things,
Mm-hmm.
and people talk about, oh, now you can make advertising pop up, and this sort of thing. And I look at the Internet of Things and I say, how can I make this utilize it for games, right? How can we turn the
Yeah.
world into a giant gaming arena for all of us? That's really what gets me excited, and that's part of the vision behind Lyteshot.
So was that part of your inspiration into making this project in the first place? Is that kind of what sparked the fire? Like, just we've got the Internet of Things now, let's gamify it. Like, is that the thought?
Yeah, I like to tell a story of, if I could go back in time 20 years and tell myself, I'm going to give you a supercomputer and a high definition TV and a GPS and a high speed internet connection, and I'm going to put it on a battery size, a wallet sized device that fits in your pocket. What kind of games are you going to play? The answer I would have given, wouldn't have been, I'm going to play puzzle games while I wait in line at the supermarket.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that's what most of us are doing with our mobile phones. And so, it always just felt like there was this huge amount of potential that was missing from mobile gaming. And most of that is because, all of your interactions on a tiny screen, and, you can make the screen only so big before it stops becoming usable as a phone.
Of course.
And so, we're really just trying to utilize the connectivity that's now available on all the phones, and the Internet of Things, seem to be the missing piece to make, mobile gaming truly mobile.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that makes absolute sense. Because that's always been an observation of my own as well, that, you've got bloody Candy Crush, and then you've got kind of awkward ports of almost AAA games. Like, it's fantastic being able to play Grand Theft Auto on your phone, but that's not a game that's designed for touchscreen controls. Like, it doesn't have that kind of crossover that really works too well, unless you've got like one of those Bluetooth controllers or something mad like that. So there has always been like this middle ground of like developed specifically for mobile, but still a good quality title to be played on mobile. So this is kind of the field that you guys are fitting yourselves into, right?
Yeah, and there have been games over the years that have sort of touched upon it. So there was a game called Shadow Cities that was out a few years ago. It's not around anymore, but there's also a game that Google did called Ingress. Yeah. And it's I've been an avid player of that since the first beta invites went out, and it's a lot of fun, but it's this sort of global capture the flag. It takes a real, sort of time investment to sort of get into the game. And, I like a lot of the people who are playing on my team, and, I chat with them on the game, and then, we meet up in real life, and everybody's just sitting there staring at their phone. And it's less exciting, than I certainly would like it to be. And so, that always felt like both of those things were sort of barriers to entry. And so, the one thing that we're trying to get people to do is to look up from the phone. And then the other one is we're trying to make games that are sort of, we like to say hyper local. So I can play with my friends in the immediate area. I can jump into a game very quickly. It doesn't require a long sort of persistent setup. It's not necessarily a giant global battle that requires me to interact with a bunch of other people who I don't know. Mm-hmm. If that's something that you want to do, you can. But we're really just trying to get people to be able to play mobile games, with their friends, the people that they know in their real world, their coworkers, people they go to school with, mm-hmm. That sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I've personally played Ingress probably about the same sort of scale. I remember it was quite early in the beta that I managed to jump on board with it as well, and. Well, yeah. While it was cool, and while it was nice and something to kind of mess around on your commute, because you whip past so many of. For those who don't know too much about Ingress, basically on your screen you'll have like portals that are set up at sort of landmarks for the most part around your environment. And myself living in London, you kind of like trip over your front doorstep and you've fallen over about 3 different monuments or something. Right. And each of those have got some kind of portal. There's 2 sides, and you would take over control of it by attacking it and so forth. But there was always kind of a very... it's just very screen based. Like, you go and meet up with a bunch of people and you plan on, giving them hell on the other side and taking all their portals, and then you're barely saying a word to each other, and apart from maybe you'll go and get a coffee, and you're still kind of leaning over with your phone trying to get that next monument just next door to the Starbucks or something. But there's a lack of kind of just eye to eye contact with it, which again you've implemented here, which is great. And the other part I wanted to really ask is, how have you kind of tested these so far? I mean, is it like in the office, or with the team? Have you been just testing it there, or have you spread it out to a slightly wider audience to go wild with it?
Right now, we only have our initial 50 prototypes. So the way we've done the testing so far is, we've done play tests with groups of people out here in Chicago where we're based. And, we play with each other, quite a bit. And also we've been at various conventions. So we were at, the Consumer Electronics Show, and we were at Indiecade, and, these various shows. We're going to be at South by Southwest, for example. And, when we go to these conventions, we let people run around with the hardware, and we try and, run games and let people actually play it and experience it for themselves.
Awesome. So, and I can only assume that the feedback was fairly good. But like, have you kind of had any suggestions from those initial few with their hands on that have become part of the whole mission, or how have you taken it on board?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, the immediate thing that we had is, the sort of pairing process got to be a little clunky, and the games were a little convoluted to start. So, we cleaned that up quite a bit. And then, a lot of the feedback is when we're around and we can explain to people what's going on, then, it's fairly easy to understand what's happening. But when you watch them interact with it, based on the questions that they ask, then we can sort of see where people are having trouble understanding things, and that's where we'll work on putting in a better tutorial or having various help, so that they get walked through the first game, because it is it's kind of a new paradigm, right? You're playing differently, and it's not something that people have done before necessarily. So a little bit of sort of walking through that. And then, we have various, mission timers and these sorts of things. So, based on that, we can tell, okay, this many people playing, and we probably want to have a mission time of, 10 minutes. And if we have this number, we're going to make the mission time a little bit longer, because they're going to have a lot more trouble finding each other. So, it's generally been, that sort of feedback that we've been getting. And then we've also modified the grips a little bit, done various sort of usability changes based on that. And then also we get to test our ranges.
Awesome. And I suppose my thought really goes to where you guys will head to in the future, because obviously when you're putting these the base kits on sale, the lighter and the puck. Obviously, you're effectively getting your money back for the equipment that you're supplying them with. But if I'm right in thinking, you guys have got servers that are up and running to ping information backwards and forwards between devices and the phone and all that sort of business as well. So what are your guys' plans for keeping, perpetuating that? Because, obviously those servers and so forth don't come for free. So are you going to be setting up kind of, I don't know, like sort of almost an esports-y sort of tournament thing, or obviously that would be a little way off into the future. But like, what are your future plans for kind of keeping the project flowing?
Yeah, so we're going to have guilds and sort of league pages that people can have for the various games. So as well as various friends lists and Facebook integration and this sort of thing. We're not trying to lock people in. And if you want to make your own game, then you're welcome to run your own server. But if you want to don't want to go through the hassle of hosting your own server, then you can pay us a small fee, and we can run a server for you. And so that's really part of the impetus for the being very open about it. Is our hope is that people can basically do what they want, and if they come to us and they want us to because we've got experience and sort of the economies of scale, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's easier to just pay us to host it, we'll be happy to do it. And otherwise, if you want to go off on your own and whatever you want to do with the hardware, we're believers in if you bought something, you should be able to do what you want with it. It's it's your device and not ours to control at that point.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. That's always been kind of a frustration of my own. You buy, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not an Apple user. I think they're evil. But like, you buy an iPhone, but you are so heavily locked down to what you can do with it because it's running their OS and you can't meddle with it at all. So a movement away from that, or that sort of style of thinking at least, is kind of the direction that you're heading into, which is great. And again, lends itself towards the open source aspect that you guys work alongside. So now that you've got like these parts, you've got your sort of new and improved consumer lighter and puck coming along in process. You've got your initial few games put into place. So after those are completed, you say you've got a fourth one. I think you said you've got coming along.
We've got 3 games in the works right now.
Okay, 3 in the works at the moment. I apologise. Then, so once those are complete and they're all out there, and you've got your other guys, your other developers that have just jumped on the wagon to develop for that for the system itself as well. Their own games and so forth. Are you guys going to continue to develop in-house other games for the system and perpetuate it that way, or are you going to just leave it out there for the freelance developers to do their own thing with?
Our plan is to keep making games. I've been making games my entire career, and I don't have any desire to give that up. So I'm definitely going to keep working on games for the system, and it's other people can make games. Not just developers. So we're going to be working on sort of a higher level toolkit. So you can't make necessarily a full game, but something for non-developers to be able to script their own game rules. So if you want to either try out some game rules before you go have to implement a full game, or if you're not an engineer, then we're hoping to have a way for people to be able to script different game rules, and so that they can try out their own different sets of rules and however they want to play. And so that's also in our pipeline, and that's something that we're looking forward to releasing to the public.
Awesome. And again, I suppose this is a little further down the line for yourselves in some ways, but what do you view the lifespan of the hardware being at? Because obviously there's always something new over the horizon, right? There's another sensor, there's another standard that's going to come out for data transfer or what have you. There's always something new, or a slightly smaller version of whatever you've already got. So what do you predict the lifespan of these initial kits to sit at?
We've tried to future-proof them as much as possible. So the only functionality that we have in there is functionality that's not available on your phone. So our hope is that as long as Bluetooth LE or Bluetooth Smart is available on phones and people know how to hook it up, then our devices will continue to work. And moving forward, the only immediate stuff that is in our game plan, will probably be increased battery life or making the units themselves, smaller or lower cost. But beyond that, there's nothing that I can foresee that would make it obsolete. So we're hoping for them to have quite a long life.
Awesome. So. Yeah, I mean that's always probably the concern, for most people as well. You buy a mobile phone, it's probably going to last you a year nowadays. That's or maybe a year and a half if you're lucky, right?
And that's something that we're trying to take advantage of that fact. If everybody's sitting there buying new phones, so if Apple releases, God knows what, all right, new feature that everybody wants to use with the Lyteshot system, then as long as the phone has Bluetooth LE and we can talk to it, then we can take advantage of that functionality, as opposed to putting all that same functionality into our hardware, which is part of the reason why we're dependent on a phone. Is we could have put in a SIM card into the device, but then, you've got two SIM cards, and then, you're paying for service on two different devices. And we said, everybody has a cellular phone, and why don't we just leverage everything that people have in their pocket already? And then the only stuff that we're going to add are things that are missing. Now, the one exception, of course, being the accelerometer. There's an accelerometer in your phone, but we thought it wouldn't be good practice to be waving around a $600, $700 iPhone while you're trying to cast spells. Was not the experience we necessarily wanted to give people. So we decided that we'd throw some accelerometers in there as well. But generally speaking, we want to be able to leverage as much stuff from your phone as possible and not have to duplicate something that already exists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely don't want to be waggling an iPhone around. So that's great. So like the usage of the accelerometers would be to kind of catch the more sort of fine movements that you're making with your hands in order to perform X, Y, Z action during the different games, right?
Yeah, I mean, the accelerometers can be used, pretty much for anything. I mean, they are programmable, so you can read their values and do what you want with them. But for example, in the Besieged game, there was the wizard character, and so he'll have a different spell book with different rune shapes that you need to actually perform to sort of charge a particular spell, right? So maybe there's a specific way you have to move in sort of a loop motion to cast a fire spell. And that's how we're using it, and I'm sure people will come up with all sorts of different functionality for the accelerometers. But for now, that's how we're using it.
Yeah, and I mean that's again the beauty of the open source, right? That's it. The information's there. Anyone can do with it as they will, and
Right.
yeah, perfect, right? And Figgles in the chat here is kind of. Moving on to the next question that I had for you, actually, which is RRP. I mean, we understand. You were looking at the $125 mark on the Kickstarter. That was the early bird price that you had there.
Correct.
For the basic set, so a lighter and a light puck, you'll get the 3D printer models for the peripherals as well if you wanted those as well, or had the ability to utilize those. But obviously, you guys are looking at reducing that price along with sort of reformulating the lighter itself. Do you have any kind of inkling as to rough ballpark where you'd be heading with that at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, we would like a lighter and a light puck to be, it would be a one-time purchase, and we're hoping to get the cost down around what you would pay for, a regular retail game. So we're trying to get it around the $60 mark, and then
Okay.
Our games beyond that are free. So we're always going to be releasing free games. So we're not asking for additional money on top of that. If other people want to make premium games, and moving forward, we may decide to make a premium game. But right now the plan is to release our games for free, and just get people to interact with each other. So that's sort of what we see as the magical price point. That's what we're trying to get it at.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you say like around a retail price game, I can almost see the marketing material already. It's just buy one game or buy a device that will play any number of games over time in the real world. That's making a lot of sense. And then Figgles again throwing in the questions here, going wild. As far as like the hosting, so you were talking about the ability to get you guys to set up a server for then people to run particular game modes off of if they want to do their own private servers and so forth. Do you have a rough idea around the numbers on that one as well?
I mean, it'll depend on the number of users of their server. So it'll be, capacity based, but, we're hoping to do something akin to, what you'd expect to pay for, say, like Minecraft hosting.
Gotcha.
So something in that price range. We're not looking to extort people for huge amounts of money.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense, right? And I suppose the other side of it as well. Do you guys have any plans to kind of, I don't know, expand it even further? And I'm thinking not quite on an Ingress style size, as we mentioned earlier, but to say we're talking the Assassin game.
Right.
Now, would there be a way of kind of setting it up just over a wide area, say, I don't know, an entire university campus, for example, and just having it as an open, free-to-enter game. You enter the area, you can begin participating in that game, or would there be the ability to kind of have those environments just what's the word I'm looking for? Just persistently being available to dip in and dip out, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be dependent on each game to whether it works with the design of the game or not. But in the case of Assassin right now, we have it sort of tuned for very, very quick short games with relatively low numbers of people. But as we drive adoption, then those sorts of things certainly become more practical. There's nothing from a technical perspective that keeps us from doing that. So far, it's just been, it's been, a decision around giving people a good experience. And so, if we tried to do a global game with the 50 units that we have now, the chances of any of us running into each other are rather low. and so, that's primarily what's driven having sort of much more localized games that aren't sort of the persistent, always running. But there is certainly nothing to keep people from doing that. And part of it too is that we want to show there are games out there that do that already, and so we're trying to show something a little bit different with what we've done. But that's been purely just a business and personal choices on our side.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you want to show what makes you unique first, right? And that's
Exactly.
you want to showcase that. So yeah, that makes again a lot of sense. So I think that's most of the things that I kind of wanted to cover over with yourself there, to kind of get like a snapshot of what to expect. And you say soon with the new Kickstarter campaign. Can you give like maybe a month that we're looking at, or a quarter that we're looking at with that?
It's probably going to be at least a few months, but our current plan is to have the next set of the hardware. So we're actually funded. We weren't using the Kickstarter for funding. It was a little bit more of a sort of a pre-sale model for us. So people weren't paying for speculative development. That was paid for by our investors. And so we're planning on releasing the next version of the hardware around September of this year, and so the Kickstarter would be lined up sometime around that time or just before that.
Okay, awesome. So we'll be keeping an eye out for it around that sort of time, and hopefully catching up with you guys again there as well, to see what's changed and what's new and what shiny gubbins have been added onto the side of it, and if you've crammed any more extra sensors inside the device as well. I still find it a little overwhelming. But no, that's absolutely fantastic, and obviously I'll be encouraging everyone to keep track of you guys. I mean, if you, for the purposes of those without the chat in place, where should we be going to catch the latest news about you guys, and to keep up with everything that you guys are doing in the development process?
The easiest place is our webpage, so www.lyteshot.com, and that's spelled Lyteshot. You can also check out our Facebook or our Twitter feeds, which are available through our webpage, and to get the latest news.
Awesome. So again, everyone, I very much suggest giving a follow to the Lyteshot Twitter. I follow it myself. There's quite a lot of interesting related articles that get popped up on there every so often. Very, very much worth a look-see for that alone, let alone keeping up for the Lyteshot stuff. But no, it's been great having you on board with us for today, and having a chat about what you guys have been up to and will be up to in the near future. As I say, we'll be definitely keeping up with you in the future as well, to see where this is going. I foresee some kind of I don't know, like chasing through the city of London with us over on this side of the pond for a promotional reason, just if nothing else for an excuse to play with them myself. So but no, thank you again for dropping by, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.